Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to talk about the nerfs. That's right, it is nerf season for Hearthstone. Now the nerfs aren't happening too soon, but they are happening. I think I believe they said shortly after the HCT, the basically World Championship of Hearthstone stuff. Basically, we get to suffer because a few people want to play the same version of Hearthstone that they've practiced time and time again using other people's decks. Now, I'll probably talk about that in a different video, but for now we're going to talk about the nerfs themselves, which are, well, they're not particularly exciting for most people except perhaps wild players, but I think they might have some pretty significant impacts. Now, let's get to it here. So, Naga Sea Witch. This is a wild card that just got nerfed. This is new. I don't think Blizzard has ever done that before, except for like Dreadsteed or something. Blizzard does not like to mess with anything in Wild because, well, they probably just don't care that much. They just figure Wild would just be whatever, so they just don't even spend their time on that. And that's probably fine because obviously Standard and Arena and basically every other game mode doesn't get enough attention in my opinion. So fine, whatever. But Naga Sea Witch, as you can see, cost 8 mana after the patch. 8 mana instead of 5. It cost 3 more mana than before. That is an outstanding nerf. Costing 3 more mana doesn't actually kill the card just because of its impact is so insane and wild with spawning 0 mana giants, as was so often a strategy, even among some of the best decks in Wild format. Now, I would say the absolute best decks in the Wild format did not include this, but there were several at the very top, notably Control Warlock with Giants, called Giants Lock, I suppose, has been tearing up the Wild ladder relatively effectively. Again, not the best deck out there, but maybe it's like 3rd or something. So some people just really hate playing against that crap, and I can't really blame them. I hate playing against that crap too. So someone actually made a paid ad on Reddit to get this card nerfed, and they updated Reddit with how much of an impact this paid ad had. This is like a week ago, so I don't know. It's pretty crazy how Blizzard hasn't given attention to some of these cards, with the community being that outspoken on them. I really hope this new generation of Hearthstone devs, I guess we can call them that more or less, minus the Broad, minus Hamilton, probably a few others that have recently left. I hope these guys kind of keep the pulse of Hearthstone going. Like, they need to know what the community wants. Yeah, Naga Sea Witch was not the best Wild deck, but it seems that everybody playing that game mode didn't have any fun playing against this card. So just nerf it, alright? Just do it. Then we had Spiteful Summoner. Spiteful Summoner is going to cost 1 more mana, so we have a very gentle nerf. There's not really much to say. This card is still going to be absolutely insane. It's just now you probably want like a 6-drop in your deck and maybe one less late game card to kind of balance that out a little bit. The difference between turn 6 and turn 7 is not a huge one, especially considering that Spiteful decks, particularly Spiteful Druid, was hovering around 2nd or 3rd place in the best decks in Standard right now. So it's still going to be really good, guys. It's still going to be one of the best decks out there, just very slightly worse. Dark Pact will now be healing for 4 instead of 8. That's a pretty big deal. Not being able to heal for as much certainly has a drawback, largely against aggressive decks. Aggressive decks will probably not counter Control Warlock, but they'll probably counter Cube Lock a little bit better than they are right now. So that's pretty good, especially when combined with the next nerf. Possessed Lackey is also going to cost 1 more mana. That is a big nerf. Possessed Lackey costing 1 more mana means Warlocks have to stay alive an extra turn before basically doing anything. The issue with Possessed Lackey is that when you're playing Warlock, you often can't just play Possessed Lackey, and that's because everybody runs Silence. So if you're playing a 5 mana, which is the Possessed Lackey right now, forget the 6. If you're playing a 5 mana Possessed Lackey, what ends up happening is it gets spell broken, then you have nothing, and then you die. So you typically have to use your Possessed Lackey in conjunction with some kind of self-killing effect which is typically going to mean turn 6. Now, if he costs 6 mana, it typically means it's going to need turn 7. Now, going from turn 6 to turn 7 as, an extra turn that you need to stabilize in the game, possibly one more than that, because often your first big taunt minion gets silenced, that's a pretty big deal. Possessed Lackey nerf is a pretty big deal, and I don't think it's going to kill the deck, but it's certainly not going to be one of the best decks in the game right now, and probably good riddance. Now, I don't see Cube Lock and Control Lock that oppressive compared to some of the other decks people are playing right now, notably Aggro Paladin, but yeah, we are kind of overplaying against this crap. In the previous standard version, previous to the standard cycle, everybody was playing Cube Lock, and now the expansion comes around, and still a lot of people are playing Cube Lock. So best we get that number close to 0, so we can actually experience a new version of the game when we have a new expansion along with a new standard rotation, right? Right. So this is going to help that. I actually think they should have probably looked at nerfing the Death Knight card, as I suggested in the past. I think the Death Knight card is really one of the big problems because it's being seen in even like zoo decks. It's just so insane. But fine, these are fair nerfs that's going to get Warlock off the table in a large way, and that's pretty good for people's experience playing Hearthstone, I guess. Then we have Call to Arms. Basically, everybody with a brain knew this card is broken, and everybody who's played this game before knew that a nerf to 5 mana was a very sensible one. So it seems Blizzard is also pretty sensible in their nerfs. Call to Arms is being nerfed to 5 mana, which is a big deal, just because it kind of breaks through that power turn 4. Getting 1-drops and 2-drops on turn 5 is actually kind of a lot worse, because that's when almost every class can have board clears against you. Also, because Paladin had the best even deck. Also because Paladin had the best odd deck, so it makes it so Call to Arms can't be played in even Paladin, which means you're not getting 2-drops. You can play in odd Paladin, but that means you're getting 1-drops, so it's kind of killed off from that. However, lately one of the best Paladin versions has been Murloc Paladin, so this card is only very slightly worse in Murloc Paladin. If you do want to know the numbers, these are today's win rates, just all classes, all ranks. Understandably, it's easier to play Paladin. Understandably, a lot of noobs are playing Paladin at low ranks and absolutely trashing people who are actually trying to have fun in the game. So they are a little bit skewed, but those are some pretty crazy numbers, okay? Paladin is extremely out of control, and one of the best Paladin decks right now is Murloc Paladin, and Call to Arm nerf does not affect Murloc Paladin in too big of a way. Certainly it affects it, but I think we have a reasonable expectation to have Paladin still be sticking around in the top spot, maybe top 2-3 spots of the meta, regardless of what happens. They also nerfed the Rogue Quest. This is the outcome of the Rogue Quest, so the requirement did not change. The effect of completing the Rogue Quest is now going to be your minions are 4/4 rather than 5/5. Is that a big deal? No, it is not. I believe Quest Rogue is going to continue business as usual, slaying the crap out of slow controlling decks and absolutely getting obliterated by aggro decks. So those are the changes right now. Naga Sea Witch and Wild probably not going to affect the game mode very much, but people will be enjoying the game mode more, which honestly, in my opinion, is a higher priority, so that's great. As far as Standard is concerned, they are nerfing some of the old decks. We'll be seeing a lot less Warlock. We'll be seeing probably a little bit less Paladin, but not that much less. And we'll be seeing a little bit less Spiteful Druid and Spiteful Priest, I guess. But again, not that much less. And for Quest Rogue, I think we'll be seeing roughly exactly the same amount, but the win rates for that deck would, rather than being like 10% chance to lose versus like control decks, it'll be like 15% chance to lose versus control decks. So wow, it'll be all right. overall, these are very sensible nerfs, and I don't like to see that in general. However, and this is a pretty big however, just about a week ago, we had minor adjustments in the arena system, and trust me, they were very minor. What ended up happening is the best classes were still the best classes, but instead of having like a 4 or 5% win rate gap between the other classes, that gap was narrowed to about 1 to 2%. Which basically meant that people who started playing Arena could just play whatever class, whatever deck they wanted. And that level of freedom has basically rejuvenated the game mode for me. So I say that so you guys have some hope, even though these changes, they're very, very light-handed nerfs, which is not Blizzard fashion. It might not change the game in a big way, but it might change the game in a significant small way that while the decks are not going to be very different, you might get a chance to play a lot more different decks that you hadn't thought of playing before, and you're actually going to win a little bit. So not saying that will happen, but there's some chance that'll happen. There's some chance that that can actually be a reality after these changes go through. Remember to have a couple of copies of each of these cards, of course, so you can get the full dust refund, except for the Rogue Quest, which I think you only need one. But all in all, I think these changes are not going to change the game too much. There are going to be a few winners from here. There are a few decks that actually do very poorly against, notably, even Paladin, Spiteful decks, Quest Rogue, and Warlocks, okay? We're talking about Big Mage is going to see a bit of an improvement because it's kind of a bit weak against most of those decks, and Quest Control Warrior, the deck that I hit Legend with, I think is going to be significantly better because, well, the decks that are being nerfed are the only decks that it loses to, so that should be quite a bit of fun. And yeah, if you haven't tried out those decks, patch comes around, probably a good opportunity to, as they might be the new Kings of Standard. For now, hope you guys enjoyed my review of the nerfs, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.